So today what I'm doing is I am deconstructing a shot from Kill la Kill for the purpose of basically deconstructing the animation technique and the timing, the structure of the character. And so what I've done is I'm doing this in Blender just because it was quick to drag and drop an MP4 into Blender as a background image. So for something like this that's essentially a pencil test, I'm kind of software agnostic. So anyway, I've gone through a lot of it already, and I've noticed that most of the time he's on 2s, but there's one set of keyframes here where he actually, what it appears to me he probably did was create the keyframes and then just adjust them. Because here he's on 1s, 2 and then a 3, then a 1, then another 2, then another 3. So, and then this is an interesting thing as well, is that during the time when she's talking, once she starts really talking, blah, 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 nothing happens. So this is just a distinction I'm making about anime, is the way there's a real division of duty in terms of animation that keeps the overall production burden under control. Because if she was really emoting with her entire body while speaking, obviously that would create a lot more work for the animator. So other things I'm looking at, and I sort of extended the frame down here to sort of show where her arm and her hand might be, and then up here in the corner you have the camera view that doesn't have the background image, so you can actually see what the final result's going to look like. So as I'm going through here, one of the things I'm doing is I'm looking at structure. So to actually set in the keyframes and copy his keyframes, I went ahead and just drew this circle for the head in every frame, and that provides the structure for the head. Now what I'm actually doing is I'm sort of going through and now looking at some different things I'm learning about the face. The first thing I'm doing is putting in the center line. So I just sort of have a frame of reference for where the center of her face is throughout. Okay, so now, and that's it. It's about a 44 frame long shot. Okay, so now I'm going to look at her mouth. I've already done the drawings here, but what I noticed is that when it's an intense or angry expression, it literally becomes angular. Okay, like this. Here, when her expression is becoming more concerned or perhaps frightened, everything becomes much rounder and softer. So again, I only say that, it's not like it's a rule or anything, but I'm saying that in trying to get into the head of the animator who did this very, very good work, I want to understand what may have gone through his mind, or her, obviously, as the case may be. I happen to know in this case that it was a guy, but I don't want to be sexist here. So it's interesting that the curvature, or the characteristic of curviness of the mouth, sort of maps directly to the anger or intensity level in her expression. Okay, so another thing is, given this circle that comprises the sort of the guide for the skull, how does the rest of how is the rest of the face constructed? And basically it's 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. Just a real simple upside down rooftop of a house kind of concept, just like that. Okay, so now let's continue with the eyes right here. Just getting a sense of the basic space, meaning distance between them. What I see is that obviously if her head is turned in a 3/4 view, then the eye that's farthest away is going to be closer to the edge right here. But the basic size is such that there's almost the full distance of another eye between the two. Right here, right here. It's about 2/3, I would say. And right now my my stylus is performing a little more choppily because I'm doing this screen capture. Okay. So again, the whole purpose here is to habituate myself to doing literally in real time what I think this other animator would have had to have been doing. So I'm trying to essentially train the muscle memory of, what's it like to go ahead and knock out a pencil test. And you're trying to go as fast as you can, really. I mean, you want to be able to envision what you're after and execute all in one smooth step. Now, the last few months have been completely the opposite as I've gone through the process of sort of landing on what software to use for this work, because when you don't know the tools well enough, you are constantly being stopped in your tracks to solve problems and figure out how to do what you want to do. So the goal is to get to a place where you definitely know how to do what you want to do, and then it becomes purely the creative exercise of deciding what you want to do. And when it all goes well, you develop the craft that allows you to simply decide the ideas that you want to express, and then you're able to do them in a high quality fashion. That's what we're after here. So we want to make it good, we want to make it fast, and ultimately when we try to sell our services, we want to probably make it cheap too. We want to be competitive. And in other areas of life, that's what I've done in creating websites, for example, which is one thing I do, in creating musical jingles for radio, which is another thing I do. I've developed my craft and my methodology to the point where I can deliver a result for the client that's quite good at a respectable price. And essentially they have no idea how long it took me to do it. But I make it my aim to to be really fast, so that my per hour rate then becomes higher. But I never charge a per hour rate, ever. I haven't for 25 years. It's always about you're paying for an end result. And then it's up to me to find innovative ways to deliver that result efficiently and effectively at a high quality level that's going to satisfy the customer. But internally, we want it to have actually happened very, very fast, so that at that point you are profitable, right? So that's kind of the goal. All right, so now I'm going to just kind of follow these lines. Good morning. It's going pretty good. I'm doing a little YouTube video while I sort of force myself to learn what this guy did as he's animating these frames.
It's Ryuko.
It's Ryuko, yes.
So you're tracing over it?
Yeah, but I'm also verbalizing the things I'm noticing about how he did what he did in terms of his timing, the shapes, the structure, stuff like that.
So you're recording right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so my goal is to get things set in my mind to get inside the head of the animator and say, okay, well, what must he have been thinking when he did this kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm doing. That's my 15-year-old son saying hello to the world, to our many millions of subscribers. Well, about pushing 700, which is not that great. Huh? The whole monetization thing's a whole nother question with YouTube. I'm not doing the YouTube thing in order to make money. I don't have any illusions about that. Nope, the YouTube thing is actually just a place to both learn and share information. Just put it out there, you know. So anyway, back to the drawing here. So I suppose from frame to frame you would really want to pay attention. Okay, if I was going to try to map this out, in order to make the animation as fluid as possible, this is probably what I would do myself. What I would probably do is I would actually identify these points right here. And then, in fact, let me do this. Let me hit the N key and switch to this ink. So, and I'm going to go ahead and go through this process right now the way I would do it. I would actually go like this. And I might even draw straight lines like this to just map it out. But the whole point, you know, with animation, it's all about the fluidity and the continuity. Okay? So then what I would be wanting to do is as I go to this frame, and for this particular part of it, I should probably have the onion skins. Okay. I keep dragging this and then it jumps back. I have to, with the tablet stylus, you have to drag, let go, and you know, give it a half a second to sort of catch up with you. Okay. And now actually what I'm going to do is to show how this process should work, I'm going to turn the opacity of the background image down, and I'm also going to turn off my my black ink drawing. I'm just going to turn it off so that all we have to deal with now, whoops, I always hit the B key instead of the D key when I'm in Blender. Okay, so this is our goal, is to let's go ahead and map this out through the rest of the shot. Okay, so okay, honestly, what would probably be the way to do it, this is actually where doing pencil tests or mapping out your animation in Blender could be quite useful, because what I can do is use the proportional editing tool to save myself kind of a lot of work, I think. So what I'm going to do is, looks like I used two different inks there, but what I'm going to do is, okay, first of all, let's just erase these lines so that they're not distracting me. Delete those strokes. Okay, so now here's what we've got. What we're wanting to do is map that out through the rest of the shot. So what I'm going to go do is I'm going to hit Control C. I'm pretty sure this will work. Okay, and then Control V, Control V, Control V, Control V, Control V. Okay, actually, I think I'll stop there because there's clearly a, you know, with the change of pose, those shapes don't really make a lot of sense anymore. Okay, so obviously early in the scene I didn't have that, but okay. So now I'm gonna hit the A key, and I'm actually thinking I'm gonna do this with the mouse. Okay, because and actually, if I was gonna do this over again, I would say, I don't know, for some, oh yeah, I see what's going on. No, for some reason I'm hitting the shift key and dragging, and it's not quote unquote catching. Okay. So what I probably should have done is just used a polyline instead of using the proportional editing tool, because then there would be way fewer points and it would be easier to manipulate the, you'd move one point and the whole line would be adjusted. So anyway, but that's okay for purposes of demonstration. In fact, actually, now that I think about this, maybe let's try using the grab tool. Yeah, there we go. We'll do it that way. That's how Peppyland would do it, I bet. Peppyland being Daniel Lara, who is kind of the key guy driving the, or certainly one of the key guys driving the Blender 2.8 grease pencil development. Good guy, good animator, real creative. Seems like a real good guy, So anyway, all right. So as long as we're gonna go this direction, let's just continue to do so. I actually think this is easier than using the proportional editing tool with basic dragging. Right here's where the proportional editing tool could be useful, because I can grab this and hit rotate and you can kind of see what happens. That's definitely useful. I'm going to rotate that as well. So it just depends, you want to use the right tool for the job. At this point, I'm going to say we want to take the whole thing and move it a little bit. By using the mouse, I can make adjustments to the proportional editing tool radius a lot faster than using the... If I use my stylus, I have to actually use hotkeys to adjust the radius. And it's definitely pretty slow. Okay, so kind of what I'm seeing here and thinking is that I want to get this point and this point in the right spot. And then the curvature I can adjust as a second operation. I didn't really realize that when I started. So that's, again, I'm sort of stating here the distinctions I'm making so that next time I'll do a better job, right? Okay, this one is, if we look at what's going on here, yes. Okay, so what's really going on here is this. That's what's actually happened. Okay. So I'm just going to sort of massage that into place. So again, the objective here is to learn. Just do it and see what you notice, and then get real specific with yourself about what you see so you can sort of integrate that into your own workflow. So yeah, I will say again that using the Blender proportional editing tool and the grab tool, I'm hitting the hotkey DE to pop up the grease pencil stroke editing tool. Normally by default it's on smooth. So okay, so now we're back here, and we can, if we're going to follow this same approach through, I would go Control D and do a polyline if I was going to do this over again. Okay, and that's as far as I'm going to go, because all I'm trying to do is get these points and wisps of hair to behave consistently when they are animated. All right, so I'm going to hit the A key to select all, And actually, Control C, next keyframe, Control V. You can see it's almost there's maybe a little rotation, but basically that's really all it is. Okay, and then the final frame, Control V, rotate that, just kind of move it into place. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the mouse, and because I'm using the polyline, frankly the proportional editing can be pretty minimal, because we're really just trying to give ourselves a map. This is just a map, it's a plan that you can then follow with your proper brush later to make it, look right. So now I'm going to turn these guys back on, and I have my roadmap, so I'm going to go back to my ink and follow the roadmap like so. And let's just see how it goes, hopefully. So now the important thing about this process right here is that I am not thinking about the underlying reference animation anymore. I'm actually not thinking about it at all. And this is a good part of the process, because I'm stepping, intellectually I'm stepping away from the source, so I'm not just tracing it. Now I'm having to absorb, internalize my knowledge of what's there in order to reproduce it through this map that I just created, right? So that's forcing me to think past the reference image to really understanding what's being done and how it's being done. So now in this case, I can follow this pretty closely, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens when we turn the red back off, right? Once you turn that red off, all you have left is your 12 frames per second animation, and it either works or it doesn't. I can already tell it's going to work pretty well. I'm not sure what was going on there. We might have a rogue keyframe. I'll have to go back and check that, but for now I'm just going to get these curves, get these wisps. Alright, that one looks like it was already inked. This one was not. And actually, I think what I want to do is turn the onion skins back off. Unlike a lot of people, I tend to I'm not much of an onion skins guy. I'd rather just jump between frames. I think, I don't really like a super cluttered workspace. Okay, so now what we're going to do is turn the red off. And by the way, let's save early, save often. And actually what I'll do is put my mouse over this window and then hit Control up arrow, which makes it a full screen, and then just hit Alt A, and let's just kind of see what we've got. Okay, so the only thing we're really criticizing right now is the hair, and basically it's fine. It did exactly what we wanted it to do. Once that's cleaned up and inked, I would expect it to look pretty smooth. Having said that, there's kind of a lot of drawing still to do, so Control down arrow, and back to work. Okay. So, now the question becomes, do we want to sort of do the rest of the process the same way? From here on out, I'm not going to go ahead and extend beyond the frame so much, just because I don't really want the extra work. The key here is I want to get the sense of the anatomy. So you got the hip structure, you got this that's sort of like a rounded triangle. So now let's follow this through. And again, our objective is to work as quickly as possible and just map in the shapes. I'm kind of the mind to say that if the shapes, if this broad pencil test works, I'm very sure the overall animation will work. So, if you get the roadmap right, you'll get to your destination, you might say. So, rounded triangle connected by this little hose that goes to her hips. There it is. So let's just go ahead and do the hip thing. You'll notice the hips are kind of locked in position through the whole shot, actually. So a lot of times this is what I'll do is I'll go ahead and just map in the general shapes. Oops. I have a real tendency with Blender to go in the wrong direction when I hit the arrows. I go forwards when I mean to go backwards. Okay. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to say this structure is going to be connected by this hose, sort of thing, like that. Right? And we'll get around to her boobs soon enough. Okay. So basically, you've got they're pretty angular, actually. So I guess I'll do them one at a time. That one's not real visible through much of the shot. So, but yeah, I mean, obviously Kill la Kill is a lot about sort of a certain wry sexism, I guess. You know, that's funny, you know. It is funny. I found that I got through maybe 6 or 8 episodes and started getting bored with it. I felt like a lot of what I was seeing, I had sort of seen it before, but I really like the animation. I like the traditional, looks like it was drawn and traced with a pencil kind of look. Okay, let's get this shoulder blocked in. Okay, so right now I'm deliberately not thinking about the background image. I'm really focusing on my drawing and the continuity of that, where that shoulder should go. So basically that elbow Yep, I basically followed it correctly, it looks like. Alright, so I'm going to give her a forearm, like so. Forearm. It's just an elongated, it's kind of like a meta ball, actually, in CGI parlance. And again, one cool thing with Blender is if you wanted to, you could obviously just grab those strokes, copy and paste them from key to key, and then just move them around instead of redrawing them. I guess I would say that for the most part, it doesn't matter. It's going to take about the same amount of time no matter how you do it. It's probably faster just to redraw it in this case. Okay, so I'm not dealing with costuming at all. I'm just wanting to get the structure and the overall animation correct. Let's make sure that works before we concern ourselves with the details. Look on YouTube for videos of Glenn Keane doing, I don't know, I think he does an animation demonstration of drawing the Beast from Beauty and the Beast or something like that. But I mean, it's definitely, he's a good example of a guy who you watch him work, he works in very broad, general shapes, you know, just like I'm doing here. He really keeps it loose, and until you know that the actual movement and timing is going to work, why waste any time on details? It's just, there's just no point. Okay, so do we want to go ahead and put in her? Okay, so we may have reached the point where we've kind of learned what we're going to learn. I'm not sure yet, but let's turn that to only render, and then let's just roll back and look at it. Okay, so the thing that's missing from my animation, obviously, is right through this, between frames 12 and 30, I don't have the lip sync in there. She's not talking. So there's actually a kind of significant part of this story that's missing here. Okay, you know, I'm pretty happy with that. You know, I'm not going to really know for sure how well I've done until I clean this up, ink it, paint it, blah, blah, blah. Which I don't know if I'll even do with this shot. You know, this was purely an exercise in trying to deconstruct the thinking process, if you will, of the artist that did the original animation. So for my purposes, following this through to completion, so to speak, may not be necessary. But I'm going to go ahead and turn my drawings off, and let's just look at his again. Because you know, when you watch this, you're responding to the overall experience, the color, the movement, the background, the story, the character. With a pencil test, you have none of that. So so really all you have is the animation. And I would say that generally speaking, it looks to me like it works. It's not too far from the original in terms of the movement. There's one part, I guess that's because it's looping. I'm going to go ahead and jump forward to like frame 60, so it's got a little bit of breathing room at the end. Yeah, that's better. So it seems like maybe there's, boom, right there. Yeah, that's the only thing I really don't, it's kind of bugging me, is between this frame and this frame, which is, that's a one frame switch right there, so that's a really rapid change. And then she gets a little worried. Clearly the eyebrows are missing, so there's a little bit of expressiveness that's kind of absent from this frame, this key. Drag, let go. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and sort of put that back in. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so let's pop this back off. Okay, I'm going to run the whole thing again. Okay, so there's a similar thing here, because these two frames actually are really, really similar, but because I drew it twice, they sort of look different. Honestly, I'm thinking I'm going to actually just delete that keyframe. Yeah. Because the change is jolting me. Yeah, I like that better. So the only thing I would criticize here in the original work would probably have to do with timing right here. When she turns, right there as well. Okay, so you got boom right there, right there. It feels a little choppy to me, honestly. But so if I was looking at mine, I would complain that it looks choppy through that sequence when she moves, because it's only 12 frames a second, and it's a mix of ones and threes. So I would criticize this, that that when she turns her head that feels choppy. But then, I go back and I look at the source material, and guess what? It's choppy too, right there. So is that a problem? Should you fix it? Should you try to do better? Well, it depends. Depends on the budget and the time you have to do it and all this and that. So anyway, I would say that's it for today, and catch you next time.